Good afternoon, everybody. We bring you yet another episode of Clarity Courage Coaching, and this time we have with us Vijayalakshmi S. Vijay, as we call her, is a master coach, mentor for ICF and EMCC. She's the president of ICF Chennai chapter, a consultant, a lawyer by profession, interesting, who traversed into the world of HR and has made a real name for herself in the space of coaching. She's a coaching evangelist, a wellness coach, and a player for life. I would like to also mention at this point that Vijay has been highly recommended and commended for her work by EMCC for a global award for 2021. The EMCC Global Coaching Award.
Hi, Vijay. What a pleasure it is to have you here.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Welcome.
Likewise, I love being in the space of two women and two coaches. I have a lot of mutual love and respect for.
Thank you so much, Vijay. And what a lovely introduction, Pari, to Vijay, and just sets the tone for what we want to start with in this conversation. Vijay, you know that, and we've been talking to you about these three constructs of clarity, courage, and confidence, specifically in the context of us being coaches. Just want you to step into that space with your initial perspectives and thoughts on how you see these in terms of their significance.
All of these words appeal to me. In the way I think I have seen life and life has treated me, and also maybe a little bit of the values, my own personal value system. And I think these are also terms that become relevant in the larger coaching landscape or whatever professional coaching is trying to achieve. And I'm specifically referring to that because all three of us are in the world of coaching. And I think, as a coach, not just do we need to embody it, and I'd love to talk about that in a bit and explore it with the two of you, but I think we also, and when I mean we, I mean the coaching partnership, can create the embodiment of these for the client as well. So I think it's quite powerful. Also, I must sort of say, and what struck me about these is there's a little bit of paradox, I think, thrown into these three terms, though I think all of them in a way are a state of being. I also find it a little paradoxical. Just so you get a sense as to what I probably refer to by these three words, right? I think confidence is, feeling sure about yourself or your abilities in a very grounded sort of way from the inside out, or could be the same with others, right? You have that confidence, you have that feeling about others. Courage, right, is actually not being sure. Sometimes you're not sure. And yet you traverse. Yet you move ahead. You move ahead with a sense of not knowing. And that's where I think clarity comes in, because a very commonsensical definition of clarity is, just visualize there's no, you're sort of clearing off cobwebs. You have a clear line of sight and vision, right? And yeah, simply put, I mean, clarity is wearing, either through your own naked vision or with a pair of spectacles, just being able to see clearly. And why do I call this a bit paradoxical is, in my experience at least, most times when you're called on to show courage, right, there is an aspect of fear. And I go back, one of my favorite definitions of Nelson Mandela is, courage is not the absence of fear, right? But to be able to conquer it and then go ahead, right? I don't remember the exact words, but that's the essence. So built into courage is fear,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes, many times, that fear could come from a sense of fear of the future, not knowing, not being clear. Yes. And yet, clarity is about being sure, is being able to see clearly, not having double vision. So that's why I find this a beautiful sort of paradox, and I would say a journey, so to say, right? That you could be courageous without being clear. You could, yeah, I mean, you may not even be confident while you're embodying courage. But one thing is for sure, I think confidence, however, is more like an end result, right? Is an end state. I think it's confidence, I'm not sure is so much a state of mind or a mindset, but I think it's an end state. It's where you get to by embodying courage, embracing fear, and I think also striving towards clarity. So often you'll find a confident person being quite sure of and being able to see clearly, first of all. And also, having dealt with fears and moved forward.
Wow.
And yet then confidence becomes overconfidence if you don't sort of feel vulnerable again with fear. Right? And that's where courage comes in. So it's sort of like this reset.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What wonderful nuances, right, Pari?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way Vijay is talking about it. Could you share a recent example where, you experienced this paradox and how you handled that obstacle? What did you discover about yourself?
One of the examples that I would like to share about, maybe not necessarily very recent in the sense of last week or last month or something, but I'd like to refer to the well-received and much known ICF India conclave of last year, which I had the fortune of chairing, and along with a whole lot of other volunteer leaders and volunteers and many, many people from the coaching ecosystem. So this, I think, was a great embodiment of courage, not just for me, but I think collectively for the whole system. Because, while, yes, we had a vision, right? And at a broad level, you can say having a vision means you have clarity, right? But you can sort of have a mind view of what, how the mountain or whatever, you can imagine pictures of it, right? But clarity is also being able to sort of see the way, right? I mean, you should see something emerging, the milestones, the pit stops. It was a pretty bold experiment because I think it was the first time we were planning a conclave that was fully virtual. We wanted to make it a global, conclave of global standards, not just global participation, global speakers, and everything in a world-class manner. And there were no benchmarks to compare because ICF India conclaves had historically been done in a physical setting. And it was not just that. We wanted to go beyond this being a conference of coaches coming together. And coaches as an audience, I think we as coaches understand a little better, right? I mean, it's not that much of a black box. But what we wanted to do, I thought, was quite bold, because we wanted to bring in everyone in the ecosystem. So we wanted to have clients, aspiring coaches, sponsors, and bring everyone there and find something that would be meaningful for everyone. So the route to get there, I would say at every stage, right, we were figuring out our clarity. But if we were to wait for that entire clarity to emerge and sort of play it safe, right? So courage also doesn't get called upon when things are safe, right? When there's a little bit of safety being threatened is where you need to, you need to invoke your courage muscle. So it required that amount of courage to have a certain inner conviction and inner belief that, yes, we can do it and this is the right thing to do. So courage is also about doing the right thing to do. It's not taking the easy thing to do. And so just sort of shifting gears from there, while that was a great experience, it called for a lot of courage and navigating through a lack of clarity. Right? I want to just talk a little about what, because you asked about my life and what it means to be personally. I think one of the reasons courage becomes so important as a value in my life is simply this whole thing about making choices, right? Every day we make these choices. There are easy choices and there are the right choices. I'm not saying the right choices are necessarily the tough ones, but more often than not, when you're working in an ecosystem as a leader, even as a coach, making those hard choices requires courage. Because you never know till the end whether it was right.
What is interesting, Vijay, is how you are bringing in so many facets of the roles that you play, the leader, the coach, the householder, the woman of the house, and how you're finding that courage and confidence and clarity, all of that really are terms that therefore experiences we become so familiar with, or the need for it is what we become so familiar with. Maybe it's us three women sitting here. Maybe that is what is promoting this question. How have you seen these three different roles really give you newer insights into the interplay between these three?
So whenever it comes to the others, right? Even as a, let's say, head of the house or the parent, or let's say with a team or even with a collective, I've noticed that everybody wants clarity, right? And there's something that puts off people jumping into a little bit of the unknown. Everybody wants to know for sure, right? This is a very ROI driven world. So while, and again, that's a bit of a dichotomy, because most times you don't know yourself. Yes. And you sort of have to be holding the light or showing, the torch, the flashlight, right? To people who are around you, people who want that. And possibly that's what they need, right? To take that first step. So it's again a very gentle state, because we may not know, we have all of that fear, etc. And yet we are torch bearers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, being mothers, I want to talk about that. And that's how I remember my own mother. Yeah, and she I think she continues to do that even today, which is, I don't think she's got all the answers. And yet sometimes she takes a stand, right? Or sometimes she says, okay, let's go this way. Now that may not be the right way. So I think an essential thing of leadership also is to be able to go ahead and, take that first step.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's where, when it comes to others, right, I think it's important to be that sort of clarity giver. And of course, allow people to traverse their own paths, right? Allow them to fall a little bit and face their own demons. And there again comes about, getting into spaces that offer growth, right? The difficult growth spaces, which are uncomfortable, which are uneasy, right? Which is not your sweet spot. I think we need to be, having the confidence. I think that's where the confidence comes, saying that, hey, this is a path everyone can, there's gonna be good emerging, right? And that's where that confidence in not just yourself, but the abilities of others.
Yeah.
Here's a example that I want to share.
Please. Yeah.
This is from my work life, my earlier life. One of the things I used to be known as was a talent spotter, and to be able to sort of just, connect different people and bring them together and and sort of bring in the most unusual people into roles. I think I still do that in some ways. My team says that of me, and I think that comes from the basic confidence that every human being just has that ability. Yeah, it may not be easy. They may not have done that before, but just that quiet confidence that we learn. Yeah, we'll fall a little bit, but we learn in the process. So that's where these roles come in, right? It's not so much about courage. I think courage is more, I would say, a personal thing. Though, of course, the way you are, people are picking up from you all the time.
I like the fact that, you spoke about different roles that we play as individuals. So as coaches, if we need to be torchbearers, then how can we help clients experience this clarity, courage coaching so that they arrive at the desired outcomes that they're looking at from the engagement?
So I'd like to invoke two competences here. So one of the things about coaching is being able to provide a very safe and trusted partnership in which people can explore and achieve their highest potential. That's really the sense of coaching. So, there's something, a foundational competency called, the relationship, basically, which is the co-creating the relationship, right? So trying to coach together are co-creating that. And in that are two other competences that I want to refer to. The first one being cultivating trust and safety. Earlier, it used to be intimacy, right? And now it's been changed to safety. One of the things in doing so is the coach's ability to be vulnerable, right? And one of the challenges as we grow as coaches is that, the world is sort of looking at you as an evolved person, you're growing, etc., etc. So there is a possibility that the vulnerability sort of comes down, you become a little bit more guarded. But interestingly, being that vulnerable person, or being able to embrace that with your client, with others, is also indicative of coaching mastery. So you've got to sort of, really ground yourself and be that, right? Now, I think to display vulnerability, you need courage. What is vulnerable? Vulnerable is being, being yourself, being authentic, being ready to be spotted failing with your face down.
Being okay to say, I don't know.
Yes, being okay to say, I don't know, right? And that takes a lot of courage. It's really not easy. But I think, and to go to places where you don't want to go, you're uncomfortable, right? You're uncomfortable as a person, but yet as a coach, you need to go. So I think that's where, courage shows up in our being, and in our vulnerability. Clients also, then model that, and they're ready to fail. They're ready to, expose themselves. They're ready to face their demons in your presence. So I think courage plays a very important role in establishing this trust, which I think is the foundational pillar of a good coaching partnership.
Wow. So powerfully said.
The second one is, one of the terms that often is used in coaching is presence, coaching presence, right? So a coach maintains a certain sense of presence. And there are two very important things here, the way that is defined. Coaching presence is nothing but embodying a style, a coaching style that's simply open, flexible, grounded. And the nice word that's used is confident. So coaching presence requires that confident style from the coach, where it's not just believing in his or her abilities, but believing in the innate abilities of the client. And, for example, even in this space, I'm experiencing a lot of confidence. Yeah. I mean, I feel I'm talking to people who know the subject, and, I can have that conversation, right? Who are not going to be judging me. So we do that every time. And again, confidence is an end result. So you need to have worked on a lot of inner work to get there. And again, in maintaining presence, what you said, Lata, comfortable, or having the comfort to work in a space of not knowing. So, coaching competences talk about all of these three things. And about clarity, I think that's really, I would say, the essence of the coaching construct, because coaching is very dependent on goals. And the moment there is goals coming in, we work on goals, not just achieving them, but having accountability built in, etc. We are striving towards clarity. So we may not know, we may be in a space of the unknown, we may be embracing all that, but as we navigate confidence and courage and we wear those, a beautiful result is the clarity emerging for the client. Coaching space can so beautifully provide this.
Absolutely wonderful. And this journey of the client experiencing the coach's energies based on the presence of the coach. Can you share some example, Vijay, in the coaching space where you had to really embody all of this so much more for the client to make the shift?
One that I want to talk about is, when the first time when I had to sort of pivot and coach in non-English. So many of us coaches, though, we all, especially in India, we all have, beautiful, rich set of mother tongues that we have, right? Almost 30 languages. Most of us, our language of communication, business language of communication is English. And most of our coach training happens in English, right? So even the models that we learn coaching from are quite westernized. Nothing wrong with that. So that's the way we are trained. So I had this one engagement that, I had sort of contracted. It was not something, it came in through a personal reference, etc. Right? And so this one was something I really wanted to support the client. So we didn't have too much of, pre-work or discovery or any of that. We sort of jumped right in because it was also a time-bound kind of engagement. It took me 15 minutes into the session to realize that, there's probably a problem with my having this conversation in English. It's not that the other person didn't know, right? And so I just tried a Tamil, right, which is my mother tongue, and of course, very comfortable for this other person. Something magical happened, right? I mean, the whole energy shifted. That's when this little voice in my head said, "Oh my God, what have you done? Okay, you've done the ice breaking. Now what? You've got to do it for like 8 sessions, 10 sessions.
Wow.
You've never coached in Tamil, right?" And I think that's where, let me be very honest, right? I was in a little bit of fear. I was not feeling confident. I was also feeling a bit, inauthentic, because I was like, maybe we should have spoken about this earlier, right? Or maybe I should say so now. But what held me back, I think, was the courage, right? And a bit of genuine sort of joy in saying, hey man, this is, the language which I knew first in my life. Why should I not be able to coach in it, right? And, I think there were a lot of cognitive reasons, right? How do you use certain terms and, what's the Tamil equivalent for it and everything. But it was so beautiful. The first session, I was obviously listening a lot, like, we do as coaches, but I felt a newfound sense of energy, and whether the client felt empowered or not, I felt empowered.
Yeah.
There was a complete shift, right? And I think that was courage, because I was not having clarity. I was certainly not feeling confident, but the deeper I went, right, second session, I loved it, right? And I said, this has brought out dimensions of me as a coach I so love. I sort of got connected with, something much deeper that added to my confidence as a coach. That, I was being very, very, native in my approach.
Yeah.
Right? I think all of us need to get in touch with that.
Yeah.
So beautiful, right? And I just think, what if I had very cognitively said, no, I'm sorry, the rules of engagement of this are in English. Right? I mean, it would have been my loss, honestly. And of course, the loss of a beautiful coaching partnership. And, my client is somebody I still, I'm in touch with. We wish ourselves well and is a very good friend. And after that, what that opened out for me is I have coached in Hindi, which is not my mother tongue, but, I have learned, I have grown up, I can speak. And I don't feel anything that holds me back if somebody says, I largely speak French, but I know you can't speak French, so we can manage in English. So that doesn't put me off. I'm not looking for a perfect setting.
Mm.
What a
Wow.
lovely example, na, Lata?
Absolutely. Even within speaking the same language, the words we use can be such a barrier and can suddenly make the client feel unsafe. And for you to make that transition into a different language and do it over sessions, what beautiful examples. Yeah. And sorry, Pari, did you have something on mind? Yeah.
I was just saying, from the barrier, taking it to become an enabler. Wow.
Yeah. And do we have time for another one? Just struck me.
Yes, that's what I was wondering. You had another example.
Yeah. So that one is, I think, more recent. A client who had a lot going on for them and life had honestly not been very fair with them, especially in the recent years, and, gone through all sorts of challenges. So here was a person who was quite low on confidence. And I don't know, I think really the role that I played there was to be present. But I think that presence came from, a belief that, yes, things will get better, right? Some kind of a inner confidence that the tide will turn. And, there is this magnificence and inner strength of this person that will emerge. Clearly, I was not very clear how that would happen. And, but, something in my way of being, I think that started making a difference to this person. And in fact, it was one of those engagements where, it took us more than half of the program, right, to even sort of start making some progress.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that sometimes even when people sign up and you say you're ready, you're not ready. And as coaches, it's about giving people that space, believing in them, believing in their, even the fact that they've moved, they've signed up, they've decided, they've jumped in. So I think we need to be very patient, and yet sort of do all that we do as coaches. And that was again it was a beautiful experience for me, because otherwise conventionally we'll say, okay, first 2 sessions, you sort of work through the goals, you're very clear, then you're sort of getting into peeling the onion, and, and then there is a certain construct, right? We all approach standard programs with, but it doesn't have to be that way. Everyone has a stage when they decide that they feel the wind beneath their wings and they fly. Everyone. And there is no one way of doing it. And I think that's where the coach's confidence can rub off on the client. I think confidence is very important.
Vijay, I talk to a lot of upcoming coaches. We do talk about able to, especially in situations like this, when they don't see a shift happening, to allow that vulnerability to say, this doesn't seem to be going, or or working for me, or this is how I'm experiencing it. What has your experience been in that space about telling the client and showing it as it is?
Here's the beautiful learning for me, that the more vulnerable you are, lighter it is for you. And lightness automatically translates into confidence. And I think it's easiest done in the coaching space, because as coaches, we are not expected to, or rather we don't, and we are not paid for giving solutions or answers, right? When you do that, there is that extra pressure to be right. But when let's say, this is something a lot of young coaches who's just starting off say, that I sometimes just feel stuck. I don't know what's the next question I must ask. And believe me, I feel that too. Yeah. But I think just awareness that you're not knowing what to ask, and sometimes even sharing that openly with your client with a simple thing, saying, I think both of us need, a minute to process this.
Yeah.
Or could you just, I'm quite stuck by what you're saying. That's it. That's all that you need to do and say.
Absolutely.
The moment you start covering up and, just throw in a question for the sake of it, it's not about the client sort of catching you falling. It's your confidence gets eroded. Right?
Yeah.
Why sort of judge and measure yourself on the smart questions that you ask? Questions, while I know powerful questioning is a very important tool for a coach, it's not the only thing. Sometimes just your being, sometimes just deep listening, just playing back, just acknowledgement can be as powerful. And that brings us to our own styles as coaches, right? So some of us are more vocal, some of us are more expressive, some of us are, we're not that expressive. And I think this whole thing, the coaching space, needs to be more diverse to accept all these different styles. Important to understand what you are and feel comfortable in your skin. So for the 10 clients who might reject you because you're not their type, there'll be 10 others who love you for being their type.
Vijay, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that up to our awareness that, we're doing that in a space of sometimes not knowing what's going to emerge, but knowing whom we are talking to and letting the energy of that person bring up whatever is the nugget of wisdom that needs to come up. And aren't we glad that we got you on the stage today, Vijay?
Thank you once again for your time, Vijay.
Thank you. Kudos to both of you. And here's what I wanted to leave you with, right? This is a quote from Maya Angelou, which says, and it was just so beautiful that I've been sort of reading it since last night, many times over. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. I think consistency is the operative word. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. And so, more courage in this world, more courage for all of us coaches, and more power to both of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.